Okay, so my name is Sammy. Thank you for that introduction. I'm a law student talking about a way the federal government can decarbonize even while it is constrained. So as a quick disclaimer, I should mention, as a law student, I'd be remiss to say that I work for the federal government now with the Department of Energy and last semester with a different agency. And while what I learned there influenced my views, these are all my views and mine alone. Okay, so there are three major issues right now affecting US decarbonization. So the first, as you can see, is this emissions gap graph. Many of you are probably familiar with it, but it is what keeps me up at night. It's basically showing that we need to limit global warming temperature rise by 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius. That orange line you see is our current policies, and then the dark blue line and then the gray line is where we would need to go, depending on if you think we need to be at 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius. As you can see, we have really a large gap there, and we need to decarbonize to get there. So what does decarbonize mean? We need to clean up our electric grid. We need to take fossil fuels off and put clean energy on. So how do we do that? Well, the Biden administration has issued a lot of renewable energy goals. One of those goals is to put 100% carbon-free electricity from the federal government. Basically, we want to put a lot of renewable energy onto the federal government's load. Okay, one issue with that is renewable energy requires a lot of land. So wind and solar require as much as 10 times as much land as coal or gas do. Some people estimate to decarbonize the US, we would need about 5 South Dakotas amount of land to put all that renewable energy onto the grid. So that's a lot of land that we really don't have. The third issue is we have a constrained government. Congress has a hard time passing any substantive environmental laws. And the Supreme Court last year in a big case called West Virginia versus EPA said that agencies that want to take big action have to have clear congressional direction in statutes. Basically, Congress has to give really, really clear instructions to agencies if they want to take big climate action. Okay, so I'm going to talk about one thing agencies can do now, even with all of these issues. It's called enhanced use leases. So what is an enhanced use lease? So an enhanced use lease is a congressionally granted authority that allows agencies to lease underutilized land or real property in exchange for in-kind services. What does that mean? That's basically legal jargon for saying that agencies can take land that they own, that they use, that they're not using and have no plans to use, and give it to private developers for a limited time in exchange for money or services. So not every agency has this authority. Of the about 200 federal agencies out there, about 5 or 6 have them, the Department of Defense being the biggest, with about 26 million acres of land at its disposal. So how does it work? Let's say I'm the Department of Defense. I own 26 million acres of land. I can take any of that land that I'm not currently using or have no plans to use. I can give it for a limited amount of time to a private developer who can build, construct, operate, and generate renewable energy on that land and give me back a portion of that energy in exchange for how much that land is worth. These are really a big win. Why are they a win? So private developers can access markets and land they otherwise couldn't. Agencies can meet their renewable energy, asset management goals, and use land that's basically just sitting there. And local communities can take the tax benefits and get job creation. But more importantly, going back to those 3 issues that I talked about earlier, with this constrained government, some agencies have this power now. They can use it now. And I put up a portion of the statute here. I'm a law student. I read statutes and regulations all day. I'm not going to force you to do that because I'm not cruel. But this is a portion of the statute. It's really as clear as you could want it to be. It says in-kind consideration may include construction of new facilities, provision of payment of utility services. It's basically just saying that they have the ability to exchange this land in exchange for energy. It's as clear as you want it to be. The second issue that we talked about earlier was the land issue. The federal government is the biggest owner of land in the US. So I didn't know this, but it's really shocking, as you can see on this photo here on the bottom corner. That's how much land the federal government owns per state, is the red amount. As you can see in the West Coast, it really is actually most of the states. And even on the East Coast, it's still a pretty significant portion of land. So what are the issues with enhanced use leases? Enhanced use leases, not every agency has the authority. It would be great if Congress would give more agencies authorities to use them, but let's work with the Congress and the government we do have. Some agencies already have this authority, but they're not using it to the full extent of their abilities. Why not? Compared to other substantive climate and environmental laws, like the EPA administering the Clean Air Act or FERC doing transmission, Agencies have to do these all by themselves. Each agency with the authority to do an enhanced use lease has to basically do all the work themselves. And they're basically doing this in the dark here. They're not learning from the successes and failures of these other agencies, which is really slowing down the process. Okay, so what can we learn from enhanced use leases? It would be great to have better interagency communication. So this is something that the Biden administration has done in past issues, climate issues. You can make an interagency task force through an executive order. You don't need Congress for this. It's a really useful way to bring these agencies together so they can learn from each other's mistakes and failures. It's also a great example of looking for non-climate laws to tackle climate solutions. So typically we think climate change, like the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, National Environmental Policy Act, these big things we want to tackle climate change. But enhanced use leases are a land use authority. It's a procurement authority. It's a contract authority. It's a great way to make sure that agencies are really using all the tools at their disposal now without just looking towards the major climate issues laws. Third, this is really a good time to hit on enhanced use leases. It's not currently being used, but the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Acts, a lot of acronyms in law, these put a lot of money right now into renewable energy. So we have money, we have the will to put renewables onto the grid. What we really don't have is the land to support it. But enhanced use leases are a really good way to support that need for land by bringing all these things together. And then lastly, just to bring it back to this emissions gap, this thing that haunts my dreams, enhanced use leases are not going to bring that gap all the way down. It's not even going to get us close to the way there. It's not flashy or sexy like a carbon tax or a cap and trade system or transmission reform, but it is something agencies can do now with the authorities they have now. It can maybe bend that orange line just a fraction, which is going to equate to saving millions of lives from the worst climate disasters. So hopefully we can pursue those big, lofty targets now, while also pursuing the small things that agencies can do to really maximize everything in their power, just to bend that graph just a little bit. Hopefully we can walk and chew gum at the same time and explore enhanced use leases further. Thank you.